Today, me and Stacie are going to discuss the business theme revolving around working and studying from home. So I know that we're all sick of this COVID-19 thing. I know, but I figured I'd summarize a bit of it, some notable events in the States, and some of the things that helped small businesses through 2020 in the States. There's obviously the China going into quarantine and Trump declaring a travel ban. But during the peaks of the pandemic, the Senate passed the CARES Act, providing 2 trillion in aid to hospitals, small businesses, and state and local governments, while eliminating an elimination of the Medicare sequester from May 1st through December 31st. There was also the HEALS Act, which provided provisions for another stimulus check, more money, small businesses, and liability protections for companies seeking to bring employees back to workplace during the pandemic. And around a year ago, a study in Nature observes that most news cases of COVID-19 originated from indoor gatherings in places like restaurants, gyms, and grocery stores, according to the analysis of cell phone mobility data from large cities. And low-income neighborhoods had a higher new case burden because of the public venues and more crowded, and residents are more likely to work outside of their homes. So how COVID-19 affected small businesses is, so small businesses actually racked up around $135 billion in debt in Canada. Hospitality, recreation, and service sector being the most indebted, and 91% of businesses in the hospitality sector took on debt. So some of the case study topics that revolve around learning and working remotely: virtual meeting overload, too much screen time, eye strain, problems with family balance, lack of quiet environment at home, internet connectivity. Nobody uses the excuse of my dog ate my homework anymore. It's a lost. It's more of a I lost my internet connection, or I didn't have one. And privacy concerns regarding employee tracking tools. So this is an interesting topic to talk about because we're all students, and when it all happened was around term 2 for most of you guys. I mean, for me, I wasn't even in the program yet. So fall 2020 term was a weird one. How the learning delivery model was going to be laid out. Transitioning from exams into project-based work. There was also co-ops being mostly remote. Since the beginning of summer, I've been doing an internship from home, and it's definitely had its struggles in terms of motivation. So one of the examples that from our business theme I want to talk about was one of the bigger tech companies, Facebook. I like to talk about these companies because the trends that happened in Silicon Valley would eventually end up in a city like Winnipeg. In terms of Facebook, starting from June 15th of this year, any Facebook employee can request to work from home. If those employees move to a lower cost region, Silicon Valley to Winnipeg, for example, their salaries would be adjusted accordingly, and they would be encouraged to go into the office at times to enhance team building. They, however, be away as many as they can be away as many as 20 business days in another location until the end of this year. And Mark Zuckerberg said that as many as 50% of Facebook employees could be working remotely from home within the next 5 to 10 years. So Zuckerberg pitched the idea as both a matter of satisfying employee desires and also an effort to create other tech companies also are grappling how to retain employees who have enjoyed the freedom of remote work during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm gonna hand it over to my pal Stacie to talk about remote work hybrid model.
about all the Facebook, how they can work remotely now, and this is something that is going to be for the near future, foreseen for the near future. So this is the trend, basically, that new trend for the organizations that appeared during the pandemic, and it's a hybrid model. So partially remote companies are hybrid companies. They have an arrangement to see employees working some days of the week at a physical office and some of the weekdays remotely from home. The hybrid model is more common than fully remote companies because it's easier to implement and it requires less investment in new equipment and infrastructure. So some examples, as you can see here from the slides, from the big companies, it's Apple. They announced in June 2021 that employees are expected to work in the office for 3 times a week with the option to work from home twice a week. Wawanesa Mutual Insurance, which is a Winnipeg-based company, they allow their vast majority of the team members to choose where they want to work. That includes a hybrid approach as well. Spotify, they have taken a hybrid approach for its workforce, allowing employees to work from anywhere across the globe, which is interesting because they also provide a company-paid co-working space if an employee chooses to work in an office but does not live near existing Spotify location. But of course, there will be pros and cons to this approach. So as for the pros, there's flexibility. It allows people to work from comfort of their homes a few days a week and then at the office if they decide to. Additionally, there is a report from Global Workplace Analytics that reveals that having the option to work remotely has contributed to reduction in unscheduled absences, since employees can have more time to manage unforeseen situations without having to take a day off. It also reduces organization operating costs as they don't spend on rents and supplies. Employers, and then there's really good opportunity for employers because they now can find the right applicant for any position regardless of their location. So they can hire anyone around the globe. But there should be cons for this, absolutely. So there's issue of employee disengagement. Leaders can't easily identify disengaged staff, so which is crucial to help them figure out the best approach to help these employees in this situation. And there's a challenges in tracking work progress. Because to maximize employee efficiency, employers will need visibility of what they are actually doing. And there's challenges resolving work-related conflicts because of the natural decline in opportunities to interact with coworkers. It has affected the way employees open up about issues at work. And the last one, it's not all jobs can be done remotely, like construction works or services. Next slide, please. So another example for this theme would be cybersecurity. Cisco reported that 85% of all respondents to their survey reported that cybersecurity is extremely important, or even more important than before the pandemic. So a real concern is around how data is being accessed and how it's secured, how to secure it effectively. So work from home employees are at much greater risk than those in offices. Since home connections are less secure, cyber criminals have an easier entry in the company's network, into the company's networks. And even more, there's various online tools, solutions, and services from third-party vendors that can change security preferences and be easily overlooked. Without the immediate context of an office, threats such as phishing and ransomware can more easily evade corporate defenses, and In traditional office settings, there's a natural defense against phishing when workers can discuss these topics between them. And before the pandemic, test phishing messages were actually ignored by the managers who were aware that corporate security was testing fraud detection. But surveys show that the same employees working remotely showed a higher chance to click on phishing emails because they just don't know what happens. And so basically, comprehensive and frequent cybersecurity training can no longer be considered as a nice to have for businesses. It is now absolutely crucial for organizations that are facing these cybersecurity threats in this current work from home environment. And in addition to training employees to spot phishing emails, organizations need to invest in integrated suite of cybersecurity solutions that prevent, detect, and mitigate ransomware and the cybersecurity threats. So what would be the developments in the near future? Next slide, please. So the percentage of workers or of employees permanently working from home is expected to double in the near future, as the productivity metric is proving that remote work, it's something that is working. And recent survey revealed that over 2/3 of organizations plan to permanently shift employees to remote work after the COVID-19 crisis ends. And it is expected, big companies, big tech companies are paving the way for this, like Twitter and Facebook. The need for large physical office spaces will gradually become a thing of the past. Completely remote companies with no headquarters will continue to form as organizations decide to reduce their office space for hybrid teams, and even forego altogether to save on costs. So one of the disadvantages of working remotely is that it's more difficult to highlight professional achievements. So employees will need to put extra effort into amplifying their engagement virtually to ensure they have access to new opportunities. And as organizations allow a significant part of the workforce to remain remote, cybersecurity will become an even greater concern. And as mentioned, organizations need to think more strategically about cybersecurity investments and how to best protect their workers and data and equipment. And I think the next slide is our sources. If there's any questions.